specification, and we're going to follow this. So we just go over with that. So what we're going to do is obviously start with the marketing principles and practice. This is one of the core units in the level 5 extended diploma in business and management that you are looking at studying with us. This unit is going to be, as I mentioned, quite interesting because of the fact that, we come across basically a lot of, let's put it this way, a lot of communication that we see on television, social media, your mobile phone, and lots of other mediums when you go across or when you're traveling, things like billboards, you see advertisements, newspapers, you have lots of communication which is being put across in general to attract consumers. So all in all, this is a unit wherein we get to see this in practice, and obviously we see a lot of messaging which is available in the market with regards to marketing in general. Now, what we are going to do is basically start off by looking at a bit of a unit introduction. And what I mean by that is I'm going to look at giving you a bit of a background into the unit first, and then we'll look at discussing learning outcome 1 for today. So this particular unit, if I just minimize this slightly, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 learning outcomes in this. So we're looking at about 5 sessions to cover this particular unit. In each session, we'll be looking at covering 1 learning outcome and all the assessment criteria is given. As you know, the qualification that you're studying is graded. So obviously you should be looking at achieving a distinction grade in this unit with me. I have been in the field of marketing for 23 years, product marketing in specific, and I would be able to give you a lot of insight into how companies look at sending out anybody which is selling any products and services, and how do they put out communication which engages with the users. You would be able to basically study in this particular unit. Now, when we start off with marketing tends to be an activity or a set of activities that most companies typically tend to do, and these activities tend to be promoting or selling sorts of products and services. And when they do this, they basically look at making the use of what is called the marketing mix. So we'll go into the marketing mix in a bit of detail in the coming sessions. But one of the key things that you will come across is that all companies which look at selling products, goods, services will always be looking at using something called a marketing mix. Now, marketing tends to be a set of activities which companies undertake primarily to promote and send this message across to consumers. And it could include things like advertising, selling, delivering products to consumers, and loads of other activities, including market research, studying consumer behavior, looking at footfalls, which we talk about when we look at retail outlets or high streets in general. And sometimes companies also look at different forms of marketing. So sometimes, let me ask you this question: you would have yourself seen different forms of marketing which is typically happening on a daily basis. So when you get a letter through your door, which is primarily dropped in by by one of the Royal Mail representatives, you see what is some sort of a flyer or a leaflet which comes across, and that tends to be a form of marketing. When you go across to outlets like Costco or Macro, or sometimes when you go to your supermarkets like Aldi, Morrison's, Tesco's, you normally pick up some sort of a catalog, which is normally towards the tills, and you bring that home, and within the catalog, you see a lot of coupons, a lot of different products advertised. That's a form of catalog marketing. When I go outside and, we see huge billboards, and billboards have messages on it, that is a form of promotion, and we see billboard advertising. Now, they could be electronic billboards, which are typically, changing the messaging, or they could be static billboards. You look at picking up a newspaper, and in the newspaper, you see some articles, some journals, but you also see a big advert from 3 or iPhone, for example, Apple, which basically is advertising iPhone 15, and that is a form of print advertising. When you look at, your mobile phone, and within mobile phone, if you're browsing on Google and you see some banners coming across on your phone, on small banners coming across on your screen on different places in your phone, that is mobile phone advertising. Now, if I get a text message from a company, and that text message prompts me to take an action that, okay, this is an offer which is happening on the weekend, or say, for example, BMW is looking at, selling 73 plate cars, and they advertise it's an event which is happening. Come across and avail discounts or get a free evaluation on your car. Get a small text message, 160 characters, and that could be, mobile text messaging or SMS messaging marketing, as we call it, or basically using the medium of SMS or short text messaging, but essentially driving a marketing message across. So we see, and when you watch television on a daily basis nowadays, what happens is in between, after a couple of minutes of programming, you would see normally adverts coming through, and that is television advertising. So what we get to see is that in order for companies to sell their products or sell their products and services, they have to get a communication, they have to get some sort of a messaging, which is normally put out through communication. And this could take any form of such messaging, which I've given you examples of. And this process would consist of something called marketing. So if we have to look at studying this particular unit, what we are looking at studying in this particular unit is marketing. What is marketing in particular? Then we look at some of the key frameworks, 4 P's of marketing, 7 P's of marketing. We look at lots of different frameworks like the ATHE model in particular, which primarily helps, for companies in developing, what is called the attention, interest. Then they look at building desire through messaging, and then finally, lead to some sort of an action for you to look at purchasing. So we look at a lot of principles, which is key frameworks in marketing. And there are 34 different frameworks that we can study in marketing. They could include like Ansoff matrix, PCG matrix, SWOT analysis, PESTEL analysis, ADA framework, STP marketing framework. We can look at, say, for example, McKinsey's 7S framework. We can look at Porter's analysis. We can look at Porter's 5 forces framework, ADA model in particular. We can also look at segmentation. We look at 4 P's of marketing or 7 P's of marketing. We look at Cotter's framework. So there are lots of frameworks that we're going to be studying in this particular unit, because they will help us understand how companies use various models, frameworks to reach across to consumers. And they would help companies in general to understand their position, their competition in the market, what are the factors internally or externally which is affecting companies in terms of selling their products and services. And last but not the least, how do they effectively reach consumers? Now, in addition to this, what we're also going to be looking at putting into practice. So that is why the name of the unit, Marketing Principles and Practice. So we're going to be putting this into practice. So the first 3 learning outcomes are going to be understand the role of marketing in business, understand marketing principles and various frameworks, understand marketing methods. So methods could be above the line marketing, or ATL as we call it, BTL, which is below the line marketing. We look at TV advertising, print advertising, we look at mobile advertising, social media advertising. So we look at understanding different marketing methods through which we can go across. And towards the end, the 4th learning outcome is where we look at putting into practice. And this would be developing a marketing plan for a specific product or service that we are going to be looking at. And that is where the word practice comes in, that in the 4th learning outcome, after going through understanding role of marketing, aspects of marketing, methods of marketing, frameworks of marketing, what we'll do is we'll put what we have learned in this unit into practice by doing some of these as a task or assessment criteria in the assignment, wherein it says develop a marketing plan, create a marketing plan for a specific product or service that we have to take. We can't generically talk about this, so we'll be looking at talking about it in specific. For example, if Unilever looks at marketing Dove soap, that is a particular product. If we look at, BMW brings out a new series like the i8, which is, an electric vehicle, then it is a specific product. If we talk about a service like Netflix introduces a new service, or for example, if you look at a streaming service introduced by another provider like Play TV, then that's a service which is being introduced for which in return, when you access that service, you pay some monthly subscription fees. If you buy an iWatch, for example, and you have a cellular connection in that, you pay $4.99 a month, $6.99 a month, and you're availing of certain services. that would be a service. So we'll need to look at going into specifics of a particular product and then a particular service and create a marketing plan around it. And what we're going to do is implement that marketing plan to be able to show what we have learned by reading through this unit. So all in all, a graded unit where we can achieve pass, merit, and distinction. We're going to look at developing our knowledge and understanding of journal principles of marketing and how they can be applied in business. There are 4 learning outcomes we'll go through. The first one will be focused on understanding marketing, role of marketing, and what are the factors which can affect marketing and marketing activities internally and externally for a business. In the second one, we are going to go into things like segmentation, 4 P's of marketing, elements of digital marketing in particular, and then we look at some of the key frameworks like the STP framework and pestilence SWOT analysis or Potter's framework, which allow companies to understand their competition. Third one is going to be looking at market research, one of the key activities. Now, if something is to be brought out by a company, any company would bring out, say, a new product or service. What they will need to do is study customer preferences, understand what consumers want, what are the key things they look for in a product, and why are these things important for them. And all that data, all that, understanding about consumer behavior and their preferences comes across by looking at an activity called market research. So we look at why is it important, why businesses need to understand that, and how do they conduct research, and why do they need to understand that this is an important activity which informs them how they can wisely spend their money when they look at putting it out for the purposes of marketing or communication. And the last one I've already explained, we're looking at putting this into practice. Now, there's a fair bit of indicative content for each of the learning outcomes, and this is what we are going to be covering in each of the learning outcomes. So today's content is going to be focused on understanding the role of marketing in business, and we look at learning outcome 1, then learning outcome 2, so the content part of it, and this informs you what all is to be studied in this particular unit. Now, in order to start our discussions on learning outcome 1 and start this particular unit, what we're going to do is look at a presentation, some of the slides that I've created, and these presentations are available up on Moodle. So any discussions that we do, any handouts that we, that I provide for additional reading, case studies, or anything in general will all come across to you from the Moodle platform. So if I, for a minute, just quickly show this on the screen so that you are aware that this is where you are going to be looking at. I'm going to highlight this topic and also ensure that you are able to, see the content. So when you log into Moodle, you'll be looking at this particular unit, which is Marketing Principles and Practice. The unit specification that I've shown you has come from here, which is this particular document that I'd opened up initially. And this document gives us the detail. As a lecturer, for me, this is an important document because it tells me what is to be taught and what are the key learning outcomes and the indicative content we need to cover. Obviously, there are books integrated into it. We've got 2 essential books. One which is Essentials of Marketing, and the other one is Strategic Marketing. I will also be uploading one of the books which I have read personally. During when I did my MBA, and Philip Kotler's book for Principles of Marketing is what I will upload shortly. And this particular book, essentially is a Bible, and I would suggest that anybody who wants to look at a career in marketing should essentially be looking at reading this book, as a whole. And I'll open this book and I'll upload this primarily. This is the only book I have ever read, in studying marketing. Any such slides, any material that I bring out is going to be, coming out of, this. He's termed as the marketing guru of our modern times. Most of the frameworks, models, things that we study, have been introduced by him. But there are sections of this that you would be required to study in order to gain let's say, Kotler and Armstrong. These are two marketing gurus. So Philip Kotler is attributed, to most of the concepts that we're going to be looking at studying in this particular book. This is a traditional 735-page book. It has lots of chapters, but what you would be looking at is certain parts of this book that will be directly related to the principles of marketing and practice. And that is what I would suggest that you would be looking at studying. So if some of you who are serious about making a career in marketing, in sales, in business development, account management, I would suggest this is a Bible. This is your Bible that you need to study. And most of it that you study in this book is what you're going to see it in practice happening, within companies. And this is one of the key books I would suggest that you should have in your library or in your shelves, provided, as I mentioned, if you have interest within this particular topic, then this is the book to study. These two other books that we have uploaded are basically books which bring all the concepts in, but these are for short reading, because if depending on the time that you have, you'd be able to get all the contents of it, which is required in this unit to study, but in concise form. So for example, if I look at sales promotion, you would generally see within sales promotion, these books would in 2 or 3 pages summarize pretty much everything. So rather than beat around the bush and a lot of different, examples, they'll go straight to the point. And some part of these books, are basically free because they have advertising in it. So the content side of it, is slightly thin. But I would suggest Philip Kotler's book for detailed study, and that would be the book that we are looking at and referring here. So the presentation that I'm going to be looking at going into today is given here, which is marketing principles and practice. And this is what we are going to go through as far as the first learning outcome is concerned. So let me just shift you over to the presentation and we'll go into our discussions with regards to the first learning outcome. So the first learning outcome is focused on understanding the role of marketing. And in this, we are going to be covering the 3 main assessment criteria, which are basically defined as 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. And they look at analyzing the role of marketing, analyzing how external factors influence marketing for a particular business, and then what is the role of marketing for a non-for-profit organization, things like charities, cooperatives. How do they look at marketing as an activity? Because they are not looking at making profits or excessive profits. So in those cases, these companies typically look at getting the message across, but again, use the medium of marketing or communications in marketing, but not for profit purposes. So these are 3 main assessment criteria. And the 4th one that we look at is analyze how marketing supports strategy and business sales function, which is the merit criteria. So we'll be extending one of these tasks into an extension of the merit activity, and that would involve discussing that with an example. So let's get into some of the key bits of marketing first. Now, before I get into the assessment criteria, what I want to do is look at 1 or 2 quick slides and talk about key terminology. So when we talk about key terminology, first thing that I look at is what is the definition of marketing. So as I've explained very briefly, in terms of, there are obviously various definitions which are available, but in general, when we talk about marketing and, look at textbook definitions of marketing, marketing tends to be a set of activities which company undertakes, and that is to promote, buy, or sell a product or a service. And this would be the definition of marketing. Now, when we look at definition of marketing, there are 2 main companies or chartered bodies, I'd put it this way, which are essentially very well recognized in the world. One of the chartered bodies that we talk about is the American Marketing Association. And when we talk about American Marketing Association, they have a definition of marketing which is approved, because this definition of marketing, over a period of time also changes slightly, but the key essence of it remains the same. So when we talk about the definition of marketing, as per the American Marketing Association, they describe it as a set of, activities and a set of institutions which are in the process of creating, communicating, delivering, exchanging, and offering value for consumers or clients, partners in exchange for a good or service. That means if I decide that I go to the market today and I say, okay, I need to buy, say, for example, some fruit and veg, what will happen is the retailer in the high street will be selling me the fruit and veg, and in return, in exchange, I would be offering value. That means I'll be paying him in exchange for those goods. So those set of activities which are normally carried out by institutions, companies, businesses, organizations, and they tend to be looking at creating or delivering value, then in those cases, what will happen is you would see this as a process wherein this process or this set of activity is also termed as marketing. Now, there is a definition of marketing that we also look at is in terms of, Chartered Institute of Marketing, which is primarily, let's say, a signature organization in the UK. They've been going for about, I would say, maybe 110, 111 years. And their definition of marketing tends to be, defined in general. And there's a definition which is acceptable. And that definition primarily tends to be, as per them, the marketing is a management process which is responsible for identifying, anticipating, satisfying, and that process looks at satisfying customer requirements profitably. Now, one of the key things that you would notice is that when we talk about the definition of marketing and definition of business in general, if I put it this way, definition of business. Now, if you ask yourself, what is the definition of business? So if I say, what is the definition of business? Business is a set of activities which a company undertakes, a person might undertake, and that would be revolving around, creating value for its shareholders. So when we talk about the definition of business, it looks at engaging a person, a company, or an organization which engages in business activities, and they could be things like sole traders, partnerships, limited companies, and they are looking at essentially, creating or selling goods and services for the purposes of profit, would be, termed as, a business. So a company which basically looks at, or an organization which basically looks at creating profits for its shareholders, for its owners, for its partners, suppliers, would be termed as business. And when we look at a company doing this profitably by understanding customers' requirement, anticipating what their needs and wants and preferences are, and then follows a very structured process to manage this whole, let's say from start to finish, this particular activity, then this process, as per the Chartered Institute of Marketing, is termed as marketing, or as a process or an activity as marketing. Now, these two organizations typically define the essence of marketing, which tends to happen, which is where the companies are looking at either positioning, selling, communicating, understanding, and then finally, putting the product and service in front of the consumer would be the set of and the activities that they undertake in terms of doing it would be termed as marketing. So let me give you a simple example to illustrate this. Imagine you run a store or you run a shop, and within that shop you're selling, say you have a shop which is selling mobile phones. Now, and you're on a high street. Now, in order to attract consumers to come into your shop, sometimes you'll see shopkeepers or business owners, what they will do is on their front facade, say for example, you have a glass front, what they will do is they'll put out a lot of posters or messages on that glass front. What are those messages? These messages could be come in for a, we also exchange phones for a new one. For example, this is one of the messages that you put across. The second message could be get your phone serviced for only $19.99. Third message that you could put across as a small poster or as a flyer, which is stuck onto the glass facade, could be opening times between 9 to 6. You might also say that we buy old phones. Now, what are you putting across and why are these being put across on the glass facade? One of the things that you'll realize that you're going to do is you're putting some sort of messages across so that you're able to interact with the consumers or customers which are passing your shop. And if they like what they read, if they have a need or a want, that they have an old phone they want to sell, or they want to basically trade, they have a phone which is damaged, or they want to get it serviced, they have a problem, they want to buy accessories, what they will do is read that message and then come walk into your store. And that would start the process of engaging with the customer. They might come in and say, okay, I want to buy a phone cover. I also want to get this service. Can you clean this up? Or, this side is broken. Can that be replaced? You give them the cost. And then the customer says, okay, yes, please go ahead and replace. And while they're in the shop, they will look at other products and things. And they might look at certain products and things the way you're organized. And that would be giving them some sort of visual clues and messages or communicating with them. And towards the end, what they do is they get the service done, they get the phone rectified, and then they pay you some value or money in exchange for it, and then walk out from your store. Why has this happened? This has happened because there was a message outside on the glass facade, and that allowed the customer to interact with you. This caught their attention. They had a particular need or a preference that they want to get it serviced. Your budget, the price at which you would have advertised fitted their budget or met their budget requirements, and that is why the customer walked in. Now, this simple process is a process of marketing, wherein you're putting messages across. The messages are resonating with your consumers. They might see it as a fact that it fits their budget. It is something that there is a need that they want to get their phone serviced. They want to sell their phone, trade their phone, get the phone repaired. And that allowed that message from your end hit the spot, and that allowed the customer to walk in and obviously give you business. This essentially is the process of marketing. Now, you might have a glass facade and you don't put anything on it, but in a show window, when you go to Trafford, or for example, you go to some of the large shopping malls and outlets, you normally see that the front window is where they display a lot of things to attract customers into the store. And that would be, if it was a mobile phone store, they would have placed newer models of the Samsung Galaxy or iPhone in the display window, wherein people want to come in, see the phone, touch the phone, feel the phone, see how it works. They might be enticed into the showroom, and the front window of your shop might be communicating through visual signs. You might not have any sort of a message or somebody talking to them, but visually it is communicating with the customers because you've displayed a brand new product of the phone, which a lot of customers want to see. You go to a jeweler's shop, for example, sometimes they display a lot of signs in the front of the store. And these are new, designs that they are displaying. And that is visually speaking to the customers. And if they become interested, they will come into the store and obviously talk to you or ask about the price, inquire about it. And that is also a process of marketing. So in all shapes and forms, I will put it this way, you need to put out communication, and that communication allows you essentially to, speak to a person, speak to their, or understand their preferences and demands. And that allows you essentially to start the process of, let's put it this way, marketing. Is that okay? Is that clear? Any questions on this so far? All right.
No
Yes,
question.
clear.
Okay, Sumit, any questions at your end?
No, sir.
All right, okay, good stuff. So feel free to ask me questions, by chat route or by asking, not a problem at all. Now, when we look at, going into a bit more of understanding, what I want to do is, before I go into the assessment criteria, I want to generally look at what is the role of marketing? Why is marketing important for, businesses or, for companies? Any idea? Why is that? So we see a lot of functions. Let me rephrase the questions. We see a lot of functions within companies and organizations. They could be HR, administration, finance, business development, engineering, production. There is marketing. There could be account management. There could be, let's say, mergers and acquisition. These are all various departments within an organization. Now, these departments could vary depending on the size and scale of the company. If it's a big organization, you might have lots of departments, but if it's a small organization, you would generally see that in the organization, there might be 2, 3, 4 people working within different roles and functions. But why do you think a company or an organization needs a marketing department or needs marketing as an activity?
Can I say?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, all I know that is the marketing. That was very important every business, because the marketing is someone who working like to make any promotion like that. First of all, for those new business they just started just now, they really need the marketing to make any promotion like that. As you can see, the Tesco now, we all know the Tesco is everywhere. So before they started, they need the marketing to make any promotion like there could be any promotion like in the magazine or any news, any TV, any something like that. So for me, the marketing is something like the more important in every business to make any promotion, especially like I just mentioned, iPhone or Samsung. As you can see that before iPhone 15 just now, like now we have a lot of any promotion. Even we trying to play the social media, like we trying to, we always see any app, something like promotion in iPhone just now or something like that. So I believe this is the more important for the marketing. This is the marketing job.
Some of the points that you made is, for example, why does a company need marketing? One, it needs to generate awareness about its new product. So that is marketing. The other thing could be that it is looking at acquiring consumers or new customers. So they want to launch a new product and they want to attract more customers. Any ideas from you, Sumit?
Yes, sir. We have mainly discussed about the product, price, place, promotion. If we have good quality products, so the company can move. If we have a low quality product, so as the example was iPhone, if there become an issue, so the company will not move forward.
That's correct. So basically,
quality is also a main cause.
Yes. So the reasons why a company would need marketing would be to raise awareness about their product, maybe raise awareness about their brand. They might be looking at acquiring new consumers or new customers. They want to advertise a new product or service that they have introduced. It could be to gain competitive advantage, to talk about that, okay, why my product is better than yours. And in some cases, it might also want to look at, let's say, driving growth. And that growth could be retaining customers, existing that you have, and then also looking at acquiring new customers. So without the process of marketing, it will be very, very difficult for companies to essentially put the word out there, engage with consumers, because marketing is an activity, as I mentioned, is a series of activities which a business organization does in order to engage with customers. So some of you mentioned points like promotion, advertising, selling, quality. These are things which marketing would help put forward as communication to customers. So if you look at buying, say, for example, a Sony TV, or if we go back 20 years, 30 years back, people, when they wanted to buy a TV, they wanted to buy a Japanese TV, because Sony TV or Panasonic TV were known for quality. And that is where, the word required to be put out was quality, that if you buy this product, although it is a bit more expensive, but it gives you quality which will last for a number of years. And how would that be got across? How would that message go across to the consumers from company Sony? By doing advertising or, putting it out on their website, or sending you a message through a catalog, or by a product flyer or a brochure. And those are the reasons why companies need to look at, or businesses essentially need to look at the importance of marketing, which is to make customers aware of their products and services, and then use this particular medium to engage with you and then help you to make, decisions to be able to buy their products. Now, with that understanding, let's go into some of the assessment criteria. So the first part we will go further into, which I've started off as a discussion, is the role of marketing. So here we need to look at the analysis of role of marketing to achieve business objectives. So I have put in definitions of marketing here, which is as per CIM and American Marketing Association, because it is important for us to understand why is it such a very important activity or very important function within the organization. In my case, if we look at UK Versity, we are very clear. If we don't put the message out, or if we don't put the word out, we won't get new students or new students who are going to look at studying UK Versity. We also differentiate why choose UK Versity. And now all this is being done to get the messaging across to our potential learners to say that choose UK Versity as against somebody else is because we provide this, we provide this, we provide this, and we are also making use of the key function of marketing. Now, what is the role of marketing? The clear role of marketing is that it helps us analyze and plan a set of activities that we need to do in order to better understand what our customer needs and wants, and also to adapt to the external environments, which is basically our competitors. So if our competitors are talking, or sending a message across by talking about something particular, then what we would need to do is adjust our messaging or our communications to basically counteract that message and ensure that it is not getting lost, but it is something which is relevant. So in this case, ability of the organization to look at putting across a message saying that we are able to meet your needs, wants, and preferences, and also provide you a product or a service at a very affordable cost would be the role of communication and marketing communication that this process would help establish. And that would essentially be the role of marketing. Now, how do we look at understanding this particular role? Now, when we look at understanding this particular role, and I'll give you a simple example relate to this. Say, for example, you have children and you have a small child which is predominantly crying. And what you would do is, as a parent, you would look at a couple of things. Now, if it's a baby and it's crying, you probably look at the baby is hungry. You're making some assumptions. You might also say that, okay, you might need to change a nappy. The baby might need to change some sides, or you might need to lift the baby up because the baby has got a sore back. Now, these are all things that you have understood and maybe heard from your parents who have brought up children. And over a point in time, the experience that you are gaining also informs you that these are the things that I need to do in order to ensure that the baby does not cry, or I'm able to, look at what their needs are. Similarly, if I apply this process to the process of marketing, what you will see is if I need to go out to consumers that I haven't met, or people that I don't know, what I need to do is to understand them. First, I need to understand who they are. Who's my target consumer? Who's my target customer? So you go with demographics like age, income level, academic level, their, things which are in terms of whether it's married, unmarried. You look at whether they are a millennial, they are a mature learner, or they are somebody who's studying, they are a student. You look at all this demographics essentially to understand the customer. And once you know who the customer is and you know very clearly what you are looking at, why you're looking at targeting them, then what you do is you understand what are their needs and wants and preferences. So here you might want to then look at understanding what is their budget, why they want to buy this product, what are the features or advantages they will use the product for, what are the usages which the products will provide. And that would help you tailor your messaging in a way which would allow you to interact with the customer better. Now, once the customer has bought your product, at some stage, what you're going to do is look at providing them good service and obviously keeping the customer happy, so that if you bring out something new in the future, or if the customer needs anything additional in relation to the requirement of that product, they will come straight to you. And that is where you're trying to build loyalty and you're trying to retain the customer. So here, when we look at the broader role of marketing, the broader role of marketing tends to be how do we identify our target customers, how do we keep them satisfied, and how do we retain them over a point in time. And that would be the broader role of marketing. Now, if I give this and put this into an example, first things first is, if I look at going back to an example of supermarket, Tesco's, they know very clearly what customers need. So for example, if you're looking at buying products and services like fruit and veg or grocery or clothes, most retailers would typically advertise them by understanding that these are things that you need on a daily basis, on a weekly shop. So things like fruit and veg, other forms of grocery, and this is something that they know very clearly that you need, and you would normally come in and buy, for a week, for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, week, 10 days, and they know your requirements. Now, in order for them to satisfy you, at some stage, what these retailers would also do is bring out products at certain price points so that they know very clearly that it is in the affordable range of what you as a customer want to buy. So they will have variety of products. For example, there might be a small milk can of 2 pints, 1 pint, 4 pints, 6 pints, and depending on your need and usage, if you are a family, you might need a larger can. If you are a single person, you might want to come out and frequently buy it. So you might buy a smaller one. And what they're also looking at is price points at which you are looking at buying. Now, over a point in time, what the company also wants to do is retain customers. So what Tesco, for example, has a loyalty card, and some of the other companies also have or use Nectar card. So what they do is basically look at giving you shopping points. And the way they are looking at retaining you is by asking you to sign up to their customers loyalty program or their card program, and that allows them to send you coupons, vouchers, offers through the post, and that keeps you hooked onto or retain you as a loyal customer. So in this case, what the company is also looking at is looking at retaining you as a customer, and that is something which they would want to do, because that would mean that every time you come back and you shop in the store, you're essentially buying more products, services, you're providing them in revenue, and in turn helping the business gain let's say more customers over a point in time, because you talk positive about it or you talk positive about their service, but at the same time it also helps the company retain you as a customer, thereby getting increased amount of business every time you come in and shop into the store. And that tends to be the broader concept of marketing. Now, if I look at a couple of things, there are some concepts that we need to understand when we talk about how we look at the role of marketing. Now, when we talk about the concepts on marketing, there are 5 different concepts which we come across when we talk about the approach that we need to take for marketing. Now, these concepts tend to be production concept, product concept, selling concept, marketing concept, and societal marketing concept. Now, one of the main things that we look at how companies approach marketing, we start with marketing concept. So when we talk about the concept of marketing, what we are looking at in this case is primarily that brands are going to utilize the marketing concepts by spending time to getting to know their customers. And this would allow, the customers essentially to, I would say, companies essentially to understand what are the likes and dislikes of, customers. So in this case, what I would suggest is when we talk about the concept of marketing, we are looking at, as a company, understanding what are the problems which would, trouble customers, and what are the problems which would essentially help customers, understand, or help companies understand customers' requirements. And with those understanding of their requirements, the company is able to then tailor its communication in a way which would be sending right messages across, or, right communication across, and that would allow customers essentially to, buy those products and services. So when we talk about, the marketing concept, what we are looking at in this concept essentially is that the starting point for the company would be the market. It would look at understanding customer need. It would look at creating a messaging platform, which will be an integrated marketing messaging platform. And that would allow the marketing concept to take into account, what the company would focus on in terms of identifying customers' needs and using their products and services to pitch against those customer needs, which will then persuade the customer essentially to buy the product. Now, this particular image highlights how the marketing concept is different from the selling concept. And this is also a concept that we will look at when we talk about approaches to marketing. So the selling concept would be the starting point would be the factory, but the marketing concept, the starting point tends to be the market. That means, where are your customers? We want to go to the place where we find customers. Marketing concepts looks at customer needs. You're looking at understanding what the need is. Now, when Apple brought out the iPhone in 2007, one of the things that it identified by market research at that point in time when Steve Jobs launched the iPhone, was that customers wanted to do multiple activities on the phone. That means take a picture, send an email, talk on the phone, do or reply to a text message. And that is where they, after doing a lot of research with consumers, studying the market, they came up with the idea that keypad has to be done away from the phone, and that space of the keypad has to be taken up by a display screen, which would allow touch to happen, and the touch would then allow multiple activities to be initiated on the phone. So they looked at one of the needs, which was with the evolving technology and the telecommunication technology becoming better, allowing networks to do or allow multiple activities to happen on phone. And that was the need which was identified by Apple. Now, what they did was, once they created that product, they created an integrated marketing campaign, which basically talked about, with the phone, now you can take photograph while talking, you can send messages, you can compose an email, and you can launch other applications on the phone. And that message resonated with the consumers, wherein what tended to happen is, when the launch was done, within 2 years, we saw Nokia phone sales becoming half. BlackBerries, which was one of the most prominent companies, Nokia and BlackBerries, their sales started declining drastically. And what it did was, it allowed Apple to capture the market by introducing a unique concept or a unique phone. Now, how does it differ from the selling concept? The selling concept looks at, basically mass producing that product. So once Apple knew, after 3 or 4 months, it knew that the product has started creating traction with its consumers, and the product is now selling and customers are accepting that product. What they did was, their factory started to then produce the good in volume. They focused on producing a product which was quality driven, which was, something which the customers wanted. And in order to sell volumes of that product, they started doing what are called a lot of promotions, was putting out messaging, promotions, advertisements, and that allowed the company to reach its sales goals. That means, at some stage, the company wanted to start selling that in volumes, and the messaging and the advertising and the quality of the product and the product scales, volumes, keeping up with it, allowed the company to essentially start making more of those phones and selling more of those in different markets. So it introduced it in US, then went to UK, Germany, France, some of the more developed markets, wherein they knew that customers have the money to be able to buy the product, and want customers actually have Apple products and they are willing to try out the new product. And that is where it introduced it. But over a point in time, slowly and gradually, by 2009, it had the iPhone selling in 60 countries, because in some countries the infrastructure wasn't there. At that point in time, it was introduced, it had 2.5G, 3G networks. And that is where, it introduced it from a concept of, where all the phone would be able to work on the telecommunication network. Now, the second thing that we look at when we look at approaches, we look at the product concept. The product concept emphasizes that buyers prioritize product quality, features, and benefits. One of the things which, Sumit, you mentioned earlier when I asked about, you mentioned, quality. Now, when we look at companies focusing on, buyers' priorities, things like when there are lots of different types of products available in the market, but the company focuses on, features, quality, and benefits of the product, then the company is looking at taking a marketing approach, which is called the product concept. So here, the product-focused, approach from the company is looking at bringing innovation and talking about uniqueness of their product rather than the price. And that is why the product concept is used, because, and here again, the prime example that uses the product concept is Apple. So Apple products are renowned for their exceptional quality and user experience, and they are not on cheap. or lower price. They are premium products. So a company, when it focuses on product quality, features and benefits, and brings across and focuses on user experience, and the products are not mass products or mass volume products because they are expensive, you would look at this as a product concept. Louis Vuitton, for example, Dolce & Gabbana, we talk about Chanel, some of these luxury brands that we talk about, like in watches, if you look at Rolex, you look at Omega, these are some of the Tag Heuer, for example, some of these luxury brands focus on product quality. Swiss watches focus on time and precision. And Rolex, for example, advertises precision. When you look at Bentleys, when you look at, they are selling a product. What is the difference between buying a normal car and buying a Toyota or buying a Ferrari or buying a BMW? The difference is they're all cars. They're all cars with four wheels. They get you from destination A to destination B. But the focus from Mercedes, BMW, and high premium cars is on quality, features, and benefits. And that is why it is product concept. Now, the third part which we look at, which is the selling concept or sales concept, is when the concept is founded on the belief that customers will not purchase adequate quantity of the product or service until unless they are persuaded to do so. That means sometimes you see when you go to outlets or stores, when you are in a large mall, you would see that a lot of companies are promoting the idea of tasting or giving you free samples. When you go to a perfume shop, you would normally say a new perfume has been introduced, and what they do is they bring out what are called samplers or tasters. That means you can actually get a small bottle for free, or a small spray for free, and that is to promote the product, because here the customers will not buy it unless they are convinced that this is something which is useful or is going to be different. And in those cases, companies, when they start to look at embracing the concept that they have to employ various techniques to sway hesitant buyers into making a purchase, then in those cases you would generally see sales concept being put into place. Things like Black Friday as a concept, cold calling, email marketing, Cyber Mondays. Amazon does certain days across the year as days in which it generates lots of sales, and this is because it is looking at persuading customers by aggressively pushing sales as a medium to acquire more customers and more business, and that would be the selling concept. Now, what is production concept? Production concept is one of the main concepts which basically suggests that people prefer products and services that are easily available and affordable, and they are essential for mass production. So when I look at companies focusing on marketing efforts that would allow you to achieve high efficiency in production process by keeping the cost low, then in those cases you're looking at production concept. So think of companies like ATHE, Walmart, McDonald's, for example, which are basically big companies. Starbucks, for example, they have lots of franchises across the globe. They use one approach. That approach is they control costs, they control raw material, they control the production supplies, and that allows them to reach across a large consumer base. Because when you go to and have a coffee from Starbucks, you are more or less 100% going to be sure that if I buy a coffee from a Starbucks store in Manchester, or buy it from London, or buy it from, say, somewhere in another country in Paris, you would find the taste of the coffee to be the same. So in this case, the companies are going to focus on mass production to keep the cost low, and they're going to sell to a large consumer base or customer base. And what they're going to do is keep their profit margins low, because they're selling the product in high volume, where they would still make the same amount of profit by selling those in large numbers. And that's why you would generally see the production approach or production concept approach, which generally comes in. Now, where do you see this happening? When the product is established. Starbucks is established. So if they open a store in any location, people will generally come out and buy their products and services, because they understand that the product and the brand is established. They know the quality of the product is going to be good. They have tried and tested that product before. And what the company then tends to do is look at basically, mass producing those products at low prices in order to make it affordable in different locations, and that allows it to bring more consumers to its brand. So when we talk about H&M, Zara, we talk about Tesco's, we talk about any such brand wherein their brand and their products and services are established, they will then drive the business using production concept, which is to sell this across in volumes to consumers. So when we look at the role of marketing within a company, we are looking at various departments like production, finance, marketing, HR. In some cases, the role of marketing might be bigger because the company is focused on selling products and services. So as you can see, I've shown different places or different companies in which how marketing is perceived as a function, and why is it important, or why is it very important in some companies, is because it drives the whole communication process in order to bring and attract customers to buy these services or products and services of the company. Now, in general, this is the role of the marketing or a set of activities which a company does in a nutshell. And they tend to be identifying opportunities, you're looking at segmenting the market, identifying a specific segment of consumers. You're looking at developing a strategy, implementing that by coming out with different forms of promotions, communication, and then assessing whether that is helping you to reach the customers or not, and thereby finally selling products and services to your consumers. Is that okay? Any questions on this assessment criteria so far?
No, I have no question.
Okay. Let's look at the second assessment criteria quickly, which is analyze external factors influencing marketing and process. Now, what are the external factors and what are these factors? There are two kinds of factors that we look at, internal and external. Internal, very simple factors which the company can control. They are within your control. Say, for example, employees, salaries, how they produce the goods and services. These are all factors which are specific to a company, and the management or the different sets of people can actually control these factors. That is why they are internal. They are not affected by factors of what's happening outside with competition or other companies. And that is where what you're going to see is that these are going to be internal factors which can affect. Now, if the company has low inventory, it's an internal factor, simply because it will be, it should have procured more inventory or more raw material, but because it has less, that means it won't be able to, procure some of these things, and manufacture less quantity. So in some cases, what you will generally see is that this is an internal factor. External factors is like the war happening in Ukraine, or the war which is happening between, Israel and, Hamas. These are factors which are affecting all countries and all companies all across. Slowly and gradually, the Ukraine war, when it started to happen, we saw a rise in prices of fuel. That affected all companies. Inflation started to increase. For example, there were shortages of certain types of material which was being produced by Ukraine, and these were felt over a point in time in other countries as well, in other economies as well. And that's an external factor. Now, if the pound increases against the dollar, the imports become cheaper, exports become dearer. So this is exchange rate or currency exchange rate, or fluctuations in currency and exchange rate typically drive such things. Now, they might not just be happening to you, because in this case, this is an external factor, which is the exchange rate is affecting all companies. Or if you are, say, for example, Tesco's, Morrison's, Asda's, Sainsbury's, Aldi, Lidl, they are all these big players within the supermarket which sell lots of different types of products. But if the pound increases in terms of its cost against the euro, that means all these companies will be able to import goods cheaper into the UK. But when they are looking at exporting, it will become difficult for them to export. But it's not just happening for them, it's happening for all the other competitors as well. So Asda is able to do it, Tesco is able to do it, Sainsbury is able to do it. So this is an external factor because it is not in their direct control. This is outside their control. This is in the control of the government or government policies. So marketing environment, that means anything which can affect the business internally from inside or externally from outside, there are these two kind of factors that we need to consider. Now, further, when we talk about external factors, they could be micro and macro. So when I talk about micro factors and when I talk about macro factors tend to be very specific to a company and can influence the operations, of the, for a particular company. Now, a simple example in this case, when I say micro factors, would be when I talk about things like a company's supplier or a reseller, if they have shortages of, say, for example, certain type of inventory, then you would generally see that micro factors would be immediate factors impacting the business. Say, for example, customers' preferences change and the company fail to realize, the sale of that product for that particular company starts to fall. If there are, for example, factors which can affect the company, the suppliers, its competitors, they tend to be what are called micro factors. And when I talk about macro factors tend to be factors which are going to, essentially be external forces which will shape the industry. Now, industry would mean if the sector itself changes. For example, if the construction sector changes, when we had this financial crisis in 2008 and 9, because of the collapse of the American housing market, Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac, what you typically saw was that these were external factors which affected the economy, and as a result, the world went into recession. Now, these were forces which were actually, or external forces or factors which were actually shaping the industry. That means they had an impact on the economy. They essentially, affected all companies, all businesses equally. But when I say equally, what I mean by that is, in some cases, it affected the business quite a lot. In some cases, it affected the business lesser. And in some cases, it affected the business in a big way. So when we talk about macro factors influence, the wider sectors of the economy, the sector itself, and they are factors which are typically controllable by the government. Things like fiscal policy, politics or geopolitics of a particular region, regional factors which can affect, like, for example, if you have lots of monsoon in a particular location and it leads to flooding, then that will be a region which will be affected, and that will be slightly larger than one business or one organization or one particular sector. And in those cases, these macro factors tend to impact wide swathes of population rather than just few individuals. And that is why they'll be classified as, macro factors. Now, in order to understand external factors, we look at one of the key frameworks in marketing, which is called the PESTEL framework. Now, when we talk about PESTEL frameworks, there are, PESTEL as a framework stands for, what are called, it's an acronym for a word called political, economic, social, legal, technological, environmental. And they tend to be essentially, helping us understand, let's say, individual factors that can affect, let's say, marketing and marketing related, aspects. So what I would do is, let me show you a small video, which is on our website, and that explains the PESTEL framework. Let's listen into this particular framework.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Marketing Insights series. I am Ramanji. Today, we're examining another critical marketing framework called the PESTEL analysis. A PESTEL analysis explores political, economic, sociological, technological, legal, and environmental factors affecting a business or a project. So let's jump right in. What is PESTEL analysis? The PESTEL framework enables companies to systematically review the macro-environmental elements that might influence them. It includes 6 categories: political, economic, sociological, technological, legal, and environmental. Elements of PESTEL analysis: political government policies, stability. For example, they introduce trade tariffs. Economic factors include indicators of economy and trends. For example, inflation rates. Sociological cover social attitudes, demographics. For example, consumer trends. Technological factors include advancements in technology or changes in technology which can affect a business operations. For example, 5G technology. Legal factors cover legal regulations, laws and restrictions in some cases. For example, employment law. Environmental factors cover ecological factors or factors related to the environment. For example, climate change policies. A well-conducted PESEL analysis helps organizations identify potential opportunities and threats in their external environment. It's a strategic tool that aids in long-term planning and can be especially useful when entering new markets or launching new products. Executing a PESEL analysis involves a three-step process: identifying factors, categorizing them under the 6 PESEL elements, and finally, analyzing their impact on the business. That's a quick overview of PESEL analysis. Stay tuned for more in this 50 video series.
So what I've done in this particular small framework that I've explained is I've also created a few slides that you can look at on the PowerPoint presentation, which talk about each of these in a bit more detail. So political factors, economic factors, social, technological, environmental, and legal. And this is what, is one of the basic tools that we look at when we talk about, studying what is called the external factors affecting the business. Now, let's look at the Porter's 5 forces model as a framework as well. And again, for this, I have a video which I want to essentially show you. This is on our website. And this particular video will explain, Porter's 5 framework. Let's listen into this.
Welcome back to our educational series on essential marketing frameworks. I am your marketing tutor, Ramanjit Singh. In this episode, we will delve into Porter's 5 forces model, a framework that provides a comprehensive view of the competitive landscape within an industry. Since its creation in 1979 by Michael E. Porter, this model has served as the foundation for strategic analysis. Let's explore the Porter's 5 forces model and its usefulness in developing a marketing strategy. Overview of Porter's 5 forces. Porter identified 5 forces that determine the competitiveness within an industry: the threat of new entrants, the bargaining power of buyers, the bargaining power of suppliers, the threat of substitute products, and competitive rivalry within the industry. Importance of the model. Porter's 5 forces model serves as an essential tool for understanding.
Let me just share the screen.
Marketing strategy. Overview of Porter's 5 forces. Porter identified 5 forces that determine the competitiveness within an industry: the threat of new entrants, the bargaining power of buyers, the bargaining power of suppliers, the threat of substitute products, and competitive rivalry within the industry. Importance of the model. Porter's 5 forces model serves as an essential tool for understanding not only the competition, but also the dynamics affecting profitability and strategy within an industry. Let's look at the real-world example. For example, in the smartphone industry, the bargaining power of buyers is high because consumers have various options like Apple, Samsung, and Google. Meanwhile, competitive rivalry is intense, given the rapid technological advancements and product launches. And that concludes our analysis of Porter's 5 forces model.
So when we look at
It remains a go-to framework for analyzing the complexities of competition and strategy. Be sure to join us for
these 2 particular models that I've shared, which is Porter's 5 framework, 5 forces model, and the PESEL analysis, are the best 2 suited models to understand what are the external factors which can affect marketing. Now, obviously, to go into a bit more detail, what I've done here is I've created a few slides, on the Porter's framework as well, and they would typically explain the 5 forces when we talk about competition, supplier, buyer, threat of substitution, and threat of new entrants. And this particular model can be applied to understand your competition and specifically to do a strategic analysis that allows you to assess what competitive forces are affecting your business in the industry. And this was developed by Michael Porter, and he is credited with, obviously creating a framework which allows us to understand the industry dynamics, and then using those dynamics and understanding your competition, your buying power, threat of substitution, and your suppliers, you're able to get a very good understanding of what decisions need to be made in order to promote, for example, your business in the market. Now, I've also taken an example of the airline industry, and here, if we look at the airline industry, Ryanair, EasyJet, there are lots of Flybe, there are lots of different types of, cheaper operators in the market, and they are vying for the same customer. So here there's a lot of, let me put it this way, there's a great customer rivalry, in order to attract customers between these 3-4 different operators which are competing on price. And because there is competition on price and there are options available, if customers do not get booking on Ryanair, they might try EasyJet, and that allows threat of substitution to happen. That means you have lots of options as a consumer, and there are alternative modes through which you can still go to the destination at the same price by choosing different operators. And this is where the company needs to sometimes look at making strategic decisions to say which destinations we'll fly to, which are going to be profitable. And sometimes you see flights by Ryanair, EasyJet get diverted, or they get cancelled because they do not have enough customers flying into that destination on a particular day. And that has a significant impact on the profitability of the company. So any questions on this so far?
No.
Okay, let's look at the last assessment criteria, which talks about the role of marketing for non-for-profit, organizations. So when we look at non-for-profit, first of all, what do you understand by non-for-profit organization? What is the simple definition of non-for-profit organization? So non-for-profit organization is normally a business entity or an organization or a business essentially that operates without the primary goal of generating profits for its members, owners, directors, shareholders. Their mission is typically to be providing services to consumers for the benefit of the community. So if I look at organizations like charities, we look at non-profit organizations like cooperatives, their main aim is to provide a range of services to its consumers. And these services could range from being charitable for organizations which are working in the charitable sector, to educational institutions, to healthcare providers. And their role is to not generate money or profit from their activities that they do, the primary activities. Their aim is to provide benefits or provide specific services to consumers or wider community. So when we look at the National Health Service, when we look at Defense Forces, when we look at, for example, charities like Oxfam, Christie, Macmillan, they are all non-for-profit organizations. And these non-for-profit organizations sometimes are also referred to as voluntary organizations or NGOs, non-governmental organizations also. And their main aim is not for profit. That means they don't do business activities solely for the purposes of creation of profit. They are conducting or carrying out activities primarily to benefit the community, to provide services to the community, and they are termed as NPB or non-for-profit businesses or NPO, non-for-profit organizations. Now, when we talk about non-for-profit organizations, they could be organizations still using marketing as a function. And why would they need marketing? Some of the examples I put across is they might be looking at fundraising. So sometimes you see during certain months of Ramadan, or when you see in certain holy months or times when we have festival or activities, you generally see some of these companies advertising, like in the case of the war which is currently happening in Ukraine or in Israel versus Hamas. We do see that United Nations, UNESCO, and some of the organizations are advertising that donate £5, and that would, or donate some money by texting so and so number, and that would help for providing a well to people or communities in remote areas of Kenya, Tanzania, in Sahara Desert, things like that. Those are the activities which they are trying to do fundraising for as charities, but they are essential primarily, and they're also utilizing marketing. There could be other such multiple messaging, which, for example, the NHS does when they look at an obesity campaign or 5 a day campaign, and that is to promote healthy living and essentially ensuring that people eat 5 a day, and maintain a healthy lifestyle. And these campaigns are for general awareness of, how people should look at living, or, let's say, having a balanced lifestyle, thereby not looking at over binging or using certain types of products which could lead to obesity. So when we look at these campaigns, these are campaigns which are done or messaging which is put out by organizations like even the NHS, and they are normally looking at, for the wider benefit of the communities by getting the messaging across that we should eat healthy, we should have a healthy lifestyle, we should balance the nutrients, or balance the type of food that we eat to get balanced nutrients, which would help us in leading a more better lifestyle, and they would be using marketing as an activity as well. There could be other forms of activities that we put across as examples. Sometimes you see the NHS donor campaigns being done, and they are basically looking at, again, getting a message across that we should sign up and become an active donor or things like that. And they would be essentially, again, examples of non-for-profit marketing. Now, there was a study which was done, obviously, in 2014, sometime back. And what it said was, what are the biggest reasons for which non-for-profit marketing happens? So they tend to happen through website. What are the channels through which it happens? Website, email marketing, traditional social media marketing, in-person events, print advertising, and media relations and PR. These are the routes or channels through which non-for-profit marketing tends to happen, for companies which are looking at providing services to the larger community. So these last few slides give you an idea in terms of what is the role of marketing specifically when we talk about for non-for-profit organizations. So this involves things which are primarily going to be useful for the community, and essentially the companies carrying out this sort of marketing, their mission or their main reason of these promotions would be to provide certain basic essential communities to the let's say to the people, or people within a larger set of people within a community, and their focus is going to be building support or building engagement, and they would be for the betterment of the human society in general. And that is where you would generally see the role of non-for-profit marketing essentially happening. So any questions on this so far?
No.
So this brings us to the end of today's discussion and our session on Learning Outcome 1. And I hope this has been useful. What I would do is obviously then meet up with you in the next session, and that would be looking at, discussing with you Learning Outcome 2. So I know that we have looked at 2 days in particular. So for now, I think what I wanted to do was get 2 days from you to be able to attend this session. But what we've done is we've only got Mondays so far. Now, are there any other days that we can also look at scheduling the session so that we are able to cover this unit, in maybe 2 or 3 or 4 weeks?
I think it's going to be Friday, if I'm not wrong. It's twice a week.
Let me have a quick look. So I think we had agreed for Friday, which was, 11 o'clock. So I think we'll be meeting up on Fridays to discuss Learning Outcome 2. And what I'm going to do is obviously ensure that you get a copy.
No, sir, 11 o'clock, I have already one session with Shazia.
That is Friday.
Yes, sir.
So Friday, there is no session on, Friday. Okay, so Friday business ethics, you have another session, yes.
Yes, sir. We have 11 o'clock another session.
So I think what we'll have to look at in this case, so on your end, we might have to look at, maybe making another slot.
Why not tomorrow, sir?
Tomorrow I don't have Achung available, so I think Friday is the other day. What we have to do is, if we can do maybe a session at 10 o'clock or essentially, 12 o'clock, that would be, easier, so that one session probably will be 2 less a week. But what we want to do is get at least one more in, and that could be Friday. So you can think about it and obviously text me back. I can do either 10 o'clock on Friday, or I can do 12 o'clock on Friday, and that would allow us to, look at 2 sessions on this unit, and spreading it across Monday and Friday would be better because you get at least a couple of days to revise what has been discussed, and then we pick up the second one, and then so on and so forth. Is that okay? So Stomit, text
okay.
let me know whether it's 10 o'clock on Friday or 12 o'clock, whichever is convenient, and I'll get those scheduled. Just alter the schedule so that we are able to meet on Friday as well.
10 o'clock is not right because your class extend more. It moves towards 1.5 hours. So after that, 11 o'clock, the Shazia class is going on. So after that, you may manage it.
I think in some cases, some of the sessions are going to be slightly brief, but when we keep to time, today was we also had the introduction for the unit. So what we'll do is, best is that we will keep for 10 o'clock. And then what you could do is basically join the session and we'll be able to finish, for 11. And that is where you can join Shazia's class.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, no worries.
Okay,
so
sir.
I'll end the session for today, and what we'll do is catch up on Friday. I'll send out the invites for Friday 10 a.m., which will be the covering of learning